This is the podcast for FinTech professionals, from the budding to the well-established, where we find out what can be learned from the movers and shakers working in the industry. My guest today is Stephanie Wilks Wiffen, UK Head of Marketing for eToro. Stephanie, thanks so much for taking the time to speak to us. How are things going? Where are you speaking from?
Hi Nat, yeah, thanks for inviting me. I'm speaking from Chelmsford in Essex at the moment, having just slightly moved back from London temporarily.
Okay, so you're still working from home for the moment?
Still working from home at the moment, hopefully to back in the office by summer, so looking forward to that.
Now, Stephanie, I think quite a few listeners, it's fair to say, will have heard of eToro, but for those who haven't, or for anyone that just needs a little bit of a reminder, could you tell us about the company?
Absolutely. We are an online trading and investment platform. We are a multi-asset platform and serve over 100 countries around the world. We offer you the ability to invest in the assets that you want. So that's anything from the stocks like Tesla and Apple to crypto assets such as Bitcoin, Ethereum. And we also offer the ability for you to copy other traders on our platform. So if you don't have the time to invest yourself, you can copy another trader at a click of a button.
So Stephanie, what makes eToro different to some of the other, options that are out there for people who want to be buying and selling stocks and trading assets?
We're a social trading network, and so we also have the feed. And this is where you can see what other people are posting, what other investors are talking about, what they're investing in. You can ask questions to our popular investors. So these are our investors on the platform that you can copy. So you can ask them, their thoughts, you can read their strategies, you can see their performance. So I'd say that really sets us apart.
And as I mentioned, you are head of marketing for the UK for eToro, for the UK and Ireland, I believe. And
Yes.
You must be doing a pretty good job because eToro is everywhere at the moment, isn't it?
That's good you say that. So yeah, I mean, we've had an absolutely crazy last 12 months. What has been coined as the retail investor boom has definitely been the case. We're seeing people who have, after lockdown, turning to different things to do during lockdown, expanding their skill set, reading more, learning about investing, and really starting to understand the investment industry. It's been a fantastic time. It's something that I've kind of envisioned for a long time, and what eToro has always set out to do. It's always wanted to kind of open investment markets and the global markets to everybody and anyone that wants to invest. And I think we've really seen that come to life in the last 12 months.
So you sort of kind of touched on the drivers there, but do you think that's, principally a feature of people, having more time on their hands? Do you think there's anything else going on there?
Absolutely. I think, once we went into lockdown, we did see that was kind of the beginning of the last kind of 12 months, which has been, we've seen kind of phenomenal traffic to our site and new registrations. I mean, globally now we're over 20 million users. So you can just kind of understand the sheer scale of kind of the movement that we've seen, I'd say, over the last 12 months. And I think it's been a combination of people having more time on their hands because they're inside lockdown with nothing to do, and people naturally kind of start looking at different topics and different things to kind of expand their skill sets, but also because we've had other people who have looked at different, how do I safeguard my future and how do I make sure that I have got income for the future? And lots of people have always been taught to save, but ultimately saving at the moment and sticking money in a bank account, you're not going to get very desirable returns. And so people are looking at other ways about how do I invest in stocks for the long term and to kind of help safeguard my future. I think it's a bit of a combination of both.
Perhaps, I think I mentioned that eToro is everywhere at the moment. I think that one particularly notable facet of that is that you guys are now one of the major sponsors of the Premier League, and I think have been for some time now. So you've obviously, as a company, decided to spend a lot on being very, very visible. Can you tell me a little bit more about that and where that comes from as a strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going into our fourth year of our football aggregation model in terms of sponsorship. So we sponsor 6 Premier League football clubs currently. And kind of the reasoning behind that is when we look at our target audience and who we see as the typical demographics of eToro users are male, 20 to 45, and their kind of key number one interest is sports. So it was a natural alignment for us to kind of really kind of start focusing on the world of football. It also works quite nicely in terms of syncing up with our kind of USP around community and the feed, because football is a community. Football fans are a big, huge community, and so we really wanted to kind of have that synergy there.
Okay, yeah, and I understand. Am I right in saying that your time at eToro, I think you joined in 2018?
Yes.
And that kind of one of your focuses has been sort of changing some of the perceptions around the brand and that sort of thing. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
So, when eToro started out, we were a traditional derivatives platform, CFD platform, and over the past 3, 4, 5 years, we introduced crypto. And then in 2018, we introduced stocks onto the platform. And really, we kind of wanted to move away from us being seen as this traditional kind of CFD Forex platform to a multi-asset platform. And so it was a large part of my job, when I joined, was to how do we shift the kind of perception that, hey, we're not just this CFD platform, but actually you can invest in stocks, but also crypto with us. And so the last kind of 2.5 years have been really kind of focusing on eToro stocks offering. And so it's kind of aligned with some of our biggest campaigns that we've done around, invest in the brands that you love, and our 0% commission campaign that's been running since as well.
So kind of amplifying certain messages around the company that you want to be putting out there and you want to be pushing has sort of been something that you've tried to focus on. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. So you always kind of focus on the kind of areas of the business that you want to build out, and that's exactly what we've been doing. So, a large proportion of our clients that come on now are stocks clients.
You're somebody who's got a fair bit of experience working in sort of fintech marketing. Can you tell us a little bit more about your career? Sort of how did you come to be in your current role?
So in terms of marketing, I've kind of fell into marketing after university. I graduated during the kind of 2008, 2009 recession. So I think, as people would probably understand now, probably going through something similar, it's a very difficult time to get a job. So really, I was open to anything, and I managed to get a marketing assistant role for an insurance company, Towergate Insurance, and I worked there for a couple of years. Someone who was looking after email marketing left, and the day before they left, our MD said to them, "Can you come and sit with Steph and just tell her what you do?" And so I kind of all of a sudden got dumped into the world of CRM and email marketing, and kind of just really took on that, and I kind of built out my expertise in email marketing. And then from that, kind of just, I suppose it just kind of snowballed. So then I ended up I did a short stint at M&G Investments. So that was kind of my first foray into the investment world. That was really interesting. But I was approached by Nutmeg, which was for a CRM manager role. And so really, I got to take a lot of the experience I had and things I'd learned from Towergate to Nutmeg. And there I was a CRM manager for 2.5 years. And that was kind of when I was more into the world of ISAs and pensions and investments. And, Nutmeg's goal was also really to kind of make investing accessible for everybody. For people who are typically investing, their ISAs and pensions and getting charged crazy fees. They wanted to make it a lot more affordable for everybody, and a simple, transparent platform where you could go on and look at your ISA or your pension value at any point. And so I'd say that has the biggest synergy with eToro, really. So I was there for a few years. I'm a big traveler. I love to backpack and hike. So the goal was to kind of take a bit of a 6-month sabbatical. So I did that, worked for a couple of other kind of fintechs or startups. So ClearScore and Gusto, so slightly not quite fintech, but they've also had really phenomenal success recently with their growth. And I came back from my traveling.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that actually. So I see from my notes here that you mentioned you're a keen hiker. Shortly before the pandemic, listeners may have heard of the global pandemic, you walked the Annapurna circuit in Nepal for 15 days in -20 conditions.
It wasn't all like? -20, but yeah.
It sounds pretty horrible to me. How was it?
It was one of the best experiences of my life. I mean, anyone who's listening has been thinking about doing a hiking challenge or, loves the look of kind of Nepal, I'd really recommend the Annapurna circuit. I mean, it was -20 at certain points, and then you cross the kind of the highest peak, Throng Pedi, which is actually higher than Everest Base Camp. So yeah, with wind chill, snow, pitch black, and climbing over a mountain could be pretty daunting. But a lot of the other part of it was sunny and warm and phenomenal sights.
What kind of altitudes would you be spending periods of time at?
We were above I think the highest point. Oh, now you're asking me. I think the highest point is
testing you.
5,300 meters or around that.
Yeah,
that's the highest point. You're spending a lot of a good few days above 4,000. I had altitude sickness. I was really sick. We had to hire a jeep, like an emergency jeep, to take me down about 1,000 meters, where I stayed for a few days to kind of recover, and then I carried on. So it can be quite dangerous, but I'd do it again with a drop of a button.
Okay. I mean, so fintech then, it wasn't something you thought you'd be interested in when you're at uni, I take it?
No, I mean, I did criminology and psychology. I was always very interested in kind of the criminal justice service, and kind of had visions of going into either kind of politics or the kind of civil service of some kind. But again, like I said, the recession kind of threw up a lot of plans and fell into marketing, then fell into finance, and then fell into fintech, really. And I'm really glad that it happened that way, because I absolutely love fintech. I love what we've seen has actually happened over the last 12 months, that finally it seems that lots of people are interested in investing, and people want to make their money work harder, and people aren't scared, and they don't see it so much now as this opaque and scary world, which is just kind of reserved for middle-aged men in suits in kind of high towers in the city. It's finally become something that, you know, every person wants to talk about, and everyone's talking about, hey, I've just invested in Tesla, or I've got Apple stocks. And it's a dinner table conversation that you have with your friends, or down the pub. Well, you know, it will be down the pub where, as of today, but we have really seen that shift, and it's really great to see, after kind of working the last few years in kind of investment fintech, to see that change.
And something I guess that you've seen grow, you know, over the past decade or so, kind of working in and around the industry, it's kind of come quite a long way, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, like I said, 12 months ago, or, you know, slightly over 12 months now, but, you know, if I could never have foreseen the growth and the interest now in investments. I mean, we had a preview of that, I guess, a sneak preview with the crypto rallies that we saw kind of ended 2017, 2018, when the world suddenly became aware of Bitcoin. And you saw kind of every person suddenly talking about Bitcoin, and the excitement and the interest. And I don't think we really had that in the investment world before crypto came about, and before we saw kind of Bitcoin came to the table. And so really, I think we've almost seen that happen again in the last 12 months, but just with stocks.
You sort of mentioned, like, you know, that during the pandemic there's been a massive growth in people using eToro, and, you know, I think that's been a phenomenon we've seen, you know, people jumping on these apps and starting to invest. Has there been any change in the types of people that are investors using apps like eToro?
Yeah, one really interesting insight is that we have actually seen a larger adoption by women. So again, it's something I've been really passionate about for the past kind of like 5-10 years, and getting more women involved in investing and kind of looking out for their future. But we've actually seen, as say, typically a client base is made up around 90% male, 10% female. However, we've seen that shift, I'd say, over the last kind of 12 to 18 months to around 15%. So it kind of obviously fluctuates on a monthly basis, but we have 100% seen a really positive move to the number of women starting to invest and use our platform.
And why do you have any ideas about what it is that's behind that? Something's happening during the pandemic that more women are sort of waking up to this as an opportunity for them?
I think it's just the same as the two reasons I gave to you before. I think it's hit home a little bit more about how important it is to kind of look out for your future and be prepared. We don't know what's around the corner, and people have lost their jobs. People have, lost loved ones. People, the last year is being so unpredictable. And I think it's made people realize that they do need to prepare, and, saving for that rainy day fund and, putting away in a bank account maybe isn't always the best option. So it's a combination of that, and also just people wanting to learn more skills and better themselves. Yeah, I don't think it's any different for women than it is for men.
Yeah, I guess there's definitely an argument that it's something that speaks to a business like eToro's credit, and it's something that you touched on earlier, like the idea that making it easy to invest kind of opens it up to groups of people who kind of maybe previously felt like, oh, that wasn't for me. That's a boys' club. That's for kind of blokes in the city in ivory towers.
It kind of comes down to the campaign that we had around investing in the brands that you love. We wanted to make people realize that you don't have to have loads of analytical insight on these companies to invest in them. Actually, as consumers, we have our ear to the ground so much more than sometimes the analysts working for these big companies, because we are the ones who are consuming every day different products and services. And so if something's taking off or something's really picking up, we know that something's might be worth an investment for maybe someone else does. For example, a few years ago, it must be about 5 years ago, I'm a big fan of a G&T. And I was noticing in a couple of bars around London, when I was having a gin and tonic, I was getting Fever Tree tonic with my gin and tonic. And I was thinking, this is really nice. This is so much better than Schwartz. And I noticed that. And if I had my investment hat on, and this was before I was working in the investment market, but I would have gone and had a look. And if I had invested in Fever Tree back then, the growth that Fever Tree have seen over the kind of last 5 years has been fantastic. And so, that's something that I noticed just by going to the pub and having a few G&Ts. And so, if people take that approach to things and like, actually, I love using Apple products. I don't see Apple going anywhere. I have Beats, I have iPhone, I have a laptop. I massively as a consumer invest in Apple. So why do I not just go and invest in Apple stock? It's kind of thinking about investments differently. And I think maybe that kind of thinking hopefully has helped more and more people who maybe wouldn't invest before start to reconsider.
If I'm interpreting you right, Stephanie, what you're saying is go to the pub, have a few drinks, then decide what you want to invest in.
Exactly. Always the best option.
Stephanie, thanks so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. And that is the end of this episode of FinTech Mix. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed what you heard and you haven't already, then do check out our other episodes and subscribe to make sure you don't miss out on future podcasts. FinTech Mix is a podcast from Say Hello to Audio. To find out more, visit fintechmix.com.